Hey, welcome to GLBC Connections. Today we're looking at James chapter 4:13 through the end of the chapter. And there's a certain kind of arrogance that comes to those who are wealthy, or at least that's the temptation that we may have if we're wealthy and have means to do what we want in life. I think that might be the question as we think about this passage is, are we wealthy and do we have this kind of arrogance? And so remember that James goes after the rich. And this is the fourth time in the book where he is confronting the arrogant rich who have a certain kind of pride. In chapter 1, verses 9 and 10, he reminds them, the rich, that they should rejoice in their humiliation because they'll die too eventually. And that theme will come up again today. He warns in chapter 2 that the church shouldn't play favorites with the rich over the poor. And so there were some problems there in that church. And then in chapter 5, which is the last chapter, it's a warning to the rich who take advantage of the poor. And so they're employees and they don't pay their workers. And so anyways, he goes after the rich. And so I believe in the context as you finish up chapter 4 and go into 5 that James is speaking to the wealthy who had means to do what they wanted to do. So listen to chapter 4 verse 13. Now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business, and make money. So that I don't think James is going after the idea of planning. There's nothing wrong with planning your business or planning where we'll travel to do business. But as we keep reading, I think we get a sense of the problem in verse 14. Why, you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. And so there's a certain kind of arrogance that comes when you can control your life and have means to do what you want apart from God. And that's really the key here, that the rich were making all kinds of arrogant plans about making money, and it had nothing to do with God. As we keep reading, he writes this: instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes. All such boasting is evil. And so the call is to live life, whether you're a businessman, whether you're wealthy or even poor. But I think this really aims at those of us who are wealthy. And I say us because I do think that in America that we have tons of means and we can do what we want and we can handle life and we can plan our plans without God. And so James moves the rich in this passage to say, if it is the Lord's will. Those are such important words that must be attached to a humble heart. He reminds them that they are a mist and that they will vanish. And there's a self-importance that moves us through life away from and apart from God, where we think we are going to live forever and we're going to call our own shots and we're going to do what we want to do. And James confronts that. He calls us to be people who live in a God-dependent way and really lean on Him, yield to Him and His ways and His timing and His work in our lives. So James calls us to live in a way where we say, if it is the Lord's will, we will do this or that. That's a good passage for us to think about. So think about your life, think about how you're living it, and whether you're living it in an arrogant, self-sustaining way, or if in a humble framework You're leaning on God and yielding to His grand plan, knowing that your life is just the mist, and your life is like a flower that will pass away. Oh, how we need God in our lives and His good work. I pray that you reflect on those couple of verses and think about your own life. If you recognize your need for Him and recognize His sovereign work in your life. Well, hey, God bless. Hope you guys have a great Friday.